Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the iFlight baby Nazgul. This little guy, look at that little tiny guy. You probably saw the thumbnail and you can tell, it fits in the palm of my hand. So this is the second Bind and Fly 1S snow prop guards that I can think of. The other one being the UZ80 or UZ80. But this one's top mounted battery. And that's a first. So is that a big deal to anyone? I guess that's my first question to you. I'm going to skip jumping the specs like I typically do here at the front of the video. We'll cover that afterwards because I have a couple of flight segments or a couple of flights that I think you need to see because, well, it's interesting. Let's go to it. Something I should have said right off the bat, you are going to want to have good batteries when it comes to these sort of quads. If you've got marginal batteries or batteries that have been kind of hammered away at through a bunch of different flights, not going to get long flight time. They'll work, but you'll probably find minute and a half. I'm going to get on the regular with the Newbie Drone Nitro Nectar Gold batteries, which are, in my opinion, and a few other people probably too, the best 1S 300 milliamp battery on the market. It's not cheap, but they are the best performing. They hold their voltage the best. You get the best flight performance out of those batteries in that size. They're not available everywhere, but all my flights are coming on those batteries. No, I'm not a sponsored pilot or anything like that. I just bought a bunch of them because they are so dang good. And in most cases, you're looking to maximize your performance. And one way you can do that is with a really good battery. Also, this one is got a new camera in it, at least a camera that I had not played with before or seen, the Runcam Atom. And that's why I wanted to show you this particular flight. This is a full sunny day, and in the DVR, this appears darker than it does in the goggles. And I have another flight that we'll look at after this that it appears even darker than this because it's an overcast day. And it's in the evening, so the sun's at a different angle and it appears much darker. But of course the DVR is appearing darker than the goggles, but I have not seen it be this dramatically different. Of course I can't show you what it looked like in the goggles. To a degree, you're just kind of trusting my word there. But this is why I wanted to bring this to your attention because, when we have a camera and it has that sort of difference, it's important, at least to some subsection of people, and I think I need to make a fairly strong point of it. These are going to be a lot of fun. When I say these, I'm talking about these little 1S no prop guards. These are great for, going out to a playground, going out to a small field. Maybe you've got a little backyard. My backyard is plenty big for something like this. You can go around the swing set and just do close proximity. We'll show you some of that flight footage there. It's not going to be a big high flyer, but it's also going to be pretty dang quiet, and it's not going to get you much attention. And if you were to run into a pet or a human, the damage that you're going to cause has got to be pretty minimal. There's always that worst case scenario that a prop catches someone directly in the eye, however unlikely that might be. But, if you just randomly, someone all of a sudden comes onto the playground that you're flying at and you run into them, it's very likely it would just only sting for a moment, less than a mosquito bite. There you see the end of our first flight, 2 minutes 35 seconds, and our battery at 3.59 volts, and could have flown just a touch longer. In this little section, once we get down along this fence run, we're going to do some close proximity. Kind of another little fun thing when you have one of these hyper micro quads and you're in a small space. You can have fun without even having much space at all. The swing set is probably maybe 15, 20 foot long and maybe takes about 8 foot deep. So not a lot of space there. When I traveled with the kids, I would see these swing sets all the time, but they were always populated. And I see some of you are able to get there and fly. I think there was when our girls were swimming at this one particular facility, I was able to sneak out there and fly one time when it wasn't occupied. And don't know how well that went. That's been so long ago. In this flight, this is our evening time flight. This was originally going to be the kind of the lead flight. This runs for nearly 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 53 seconds, I believe. And it was a good fun flight. In this particular evening, it's probably about 6:20, 6:30. So the sun isn't necessarily high in the sky, but it's also relatively cloudy, but not like storm cloudy, almost just like hazy cloudy. And I thought that the image that we see here in the DVR you judge it for yourself, but I noticed it right away that I was like, this seems darker than I remember it being in the goggles. And it's kind of one of those, again, first times that I've had one of those experiences of thinking that precise thing. So this was going to be my lead flight, and I decided, no, I've got to go back out. I've got to wait for a sunny day, and I've got to fly it some more. I've also got an inside section of flight. I crashed this thing so many times inside. I didn't want to beat it up too much. I was doing that just for fun. I didn't know if I would show it in the video or not, so I'll do that probably in a picture back at the desk. There's a few things that I think you should look at if you're going to buy this to help lead to its longevity, especially the motor stems. And this has got 35 millimeter propellers. So that's something that we saw originally in that Eachine Whoop. I can't remember which one it was, but it had 35 millimeter propellers. These are Gemfan 35 millimeter propellers, and you can shove them all the way to the bell. I highly encourage you to do that. I did that on mine when I got it out of the box, and I think my shafts are fine, even with all the crashing that I've done in the house, which is more hard surface crashing. Also use turtle mode inside the house quite a bit, and turtle mode works well. I don't encourage you to use turtle mode outside though. I don't know how much this ESC can take, and if your prop is obstructed and can't spin and you hit the turtle mode, you could pop an ESC and have some immediate sadness. Last thing to draw your attention to is the VTX. It is not locked, so you don't have to unlock it, but it only has 2 power levels, 25 milliwatts and 50 milliwatts. Some people will be upset by that, some people won't. So don't expect great range. Of course, this is a D8 SPI receiver, and you are going to need to be able to run D8 on your radio in order to be able to bind it and get the range that you see in this video. If you have a newer radio with the newer FRSky firmware, please be careful about spending your money first. Do your research on your radio before you make a purchase for this. Also want to say thanks to Eric and Sam of Pyrodrone. Pyrodrone is where I bought this, and Eric and Sam picked and packed my order so lovingly and careful, and wrote a nice little note on my receipt. So thank you both for that. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the fact that you took a little bit of extra time for me there. Okay, end of our flight. 3.49 on the battery, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. I overstated that by 3 seconds, so real close to where I typically want to be. One question I didn't answer during the flight narration is, if you're looking at the Uzi 80 and the baby Nazgul, which one? You're wanting to know from me for some particular reason. Well, the price point is quite a bit different. I think this one comes in at under $90, and this one's almost $120. So you have to decide right there. There's a decision point. They fly similarly, but they fly different, and this feels like it's going to last longer. This has that super bendy carbon, which didn't seem to cause any flight points, and this canopy is super robust, but this just feels more solid. It feels like it's going to fly longer. I do wish it had 40 millimeter props. I think there's some additional efficiency we can gain in 40 millimeter props, but it is what we've got. I think it's well built as far as it's put together. So if you're asking between the Uzi 80 and the baby Nazgul, I would go baby Nazgul. The top mounted battery is kind of a fun difference. I think most of us are probably freestylers, and whether we have a racing style, but we also kind of work in a few little freestyle-ish sort of things, I think that makes us freestylers. I think if you're racing, you're actually out on a racing field. But at any rate, that's the answer to that question, which I think would probably be one of the early questions that we have. Bottom carbon fiber plate is 1.5 millimeters thick. Top plate is 1 millimeter thick. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting 63 millimeters. It weighs just about 27 grams. And with that battery, it weighs 35 grams. Quickly here, a few of the things that we get. Again, these are 35 millimeter Gemfan props. So if you're looking at this, I would encourage you to get some more props, but I've been running the originals, and I've probably got like 40 flights on this thing already. So maybe not an emergency to get props, but it's always nice to have more than one extra set. It does include a PH20 USB-C based charger, a USB-C cable, a little hex tool there for your screws, and a Phillips screwdriver. We've got some nuts that you would use across your flight controller, some motor screws, and then some standoff screws that go in here. It is soft mounted. There is a gummy up here. Can't hardly get it to move, though I think one of these connectors might be touching. And then we have a nylon bit down here. Look at my props, please. Please notice the props and how they are shoved all the way down, and we can actually see some of the prop stem above. The further down we get our props, if we get our props on the bell of the motor, that will help the stem stay intact. That will decrease their potential for damage. You know, I've had a lot of crashes. Of course, in the backyard, my crashes are on that soft, cushy grass, something this small, this light. It's not going to necessarily take too much damage. I had a number of other crashes, probably 15 or 20, in the house, which is a much harder surface, and I did have to crease a few props back, but I think my prop shafts are still pretty well intact, and it's because I shoved those down. Now, when you shove those down, be careful. I poked a little hole in my index finger because I just went and squeezed it real hard, and it popped down. Take your fingernails or your fingers and go on each side of the shaft and kind of squeeze it evenly and get it to pop down. That way you won't have that issue. I had a little drop of blood. It even came out. A darn little thing poked me. This is one of my props. You can see the line in it, hopefully right there. That's one of the props that got so messed up that had a little crease in it. The Runcam Atom, you know, I'll let you judge that for yourself. For a super tiny camera and a super tiny lens, I thought it did all right. I wish it were better. I'm always looking for, you know, a 1 gram camera that can really blow my socks off. I guess we always wish for those things. We have our TPU print that is our mount, and it does provide a little bit of camera protection, I guess, because I really think it'll take something to get something in there and bang your lens to make a problem with your camera. So I think it's fairly well protected in this case. Maybe if you fly into a bush or tree and the end of the stick and it's been cut off, it goes right into your lens. Because we've got protection down here and we've got protection up here. Yeah, pretty well protected. You can see it kind of has that housing. Hopefully down in there you can see that housing. The rear side of here we have both of our antenna mounts. We've got our VTX and then our control link antenna mount. For mounting, or excuse me, for binding, it already came preset for FrSky D if you're getting the FrSky version, which I think is the only version that's available. So that means D8 mode on the radio. You go into your Betaflight application in the CLI. You type bind_RX, you hit enter, and it should say binding. Then you hit the bind on your radio. You should be all set to go. I think it took me like 9 minutes to set this one up. The VTX in here is super tiny, and it seems to have some sort of adhesive between the VTX and the board that it's sitting on. And I also believe, although no, it's not. No, the camera's connected via that connector. I think it's got pins. Yeah, right there. Finally, I can see. Do I have enough light to where you can see that? Let me get my flashlight out. This could blind us. Can you see those pins right there, hopefully? Oops, bumped the camera. Sorry about that. It's got pins right in there. Now, I'm not crazy about pins on our flight stacks, but I'm hopeful that this is light enough, especially the VTX. This little VTX is tiny, you know. It can't weigh more than just the board itself. I guess it's got that connector on there. It can't weigh more than, at most, 2 grams. So with only 2 grams of inertia on a crash, and you've got a pretty small light quad, surely there's not going to be enough momentum and inertia with that VTX to shift and those pins to become a problem. I'm speculating there, but, you know, again, I've crashed it and it still runs fine. Hopefully yours will too, but we all crash different. That's something we also have to acknowledge. Hopefully you got a good look at the mounting for the antenna. That stuff's pretty important to keep it out of your prop because everything is so compact that if the antennas were to slip out, you know, they get right in your prop line, and you do not want that. I didn't have that problem, but I think it's a good thing, you know, just kind of give your quad a look over before you take off each time to ensure you don't have some sadness in your life because a prop tore up a wire or something like that. You can see we've got clearance there for the antenna wire as well. Now, I think the question is, can you run bigger batteries? Sure, you can run bigger batteries. You could take a 450. I've actually got a 450 right here. And as you can see, if we put a 450 on here, of course, we're not going to be using this mount anymore. So we'll be taking this mount off and probably using a strap of some sort, a cheapo depot Velcro strap. And this is going to cover up at least some of the air intake from the props. So that's going to have some decreased efficiency. And then you've got the secondary issue of how do you connect here? You know, because most of these batteries that are 450 outside of the Beta FPV batteries, which are running BT20, and I don't recommend Beta FPV batteries, you've got a lead on most of these batteries. So yeah, if you can figure it out and run a bigger battery, sure, you'll get more flight time. You may find less pop. What I call it means quick throttle response. The throttle will respond quickly, but the quad won't respond quickly to the throttle response. Hopefully that makes sense. You add essentially dead weight to the quad. It's not performance weight, it's dead weight. But if you want just longer flights, I'm sure a 450 would get you a longer flight than the 300 that I've been running. But I thought it was fun, and if I can get nearly a 3-minute flight on a 300, I'm pretty satisfied with that, especially in the 1S category. Most of the time with the 1S category, we're running bigger props like we did with the TKS Starlord, and we're running a much bigger battery like the 450, and we increase our efficiency. But this guy is so stinking small, and it's awful cute. But the smaller your prop goes, there's a deficiency in efficiency. But they're a lot of fun. I can't see anything wrong with this. And as I said earlier in the video, if you're asking me between the Uzi 80 and the baby Nazgul, I go baby Nazgul. I thought it was more fun. I enjoyed myself. But again, this is a choice that you need to make for yourself. You don't need to listen to some guy in his basement who makes videos. Just my opinion. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I read them all, and I reply to most of them, so if you got a question, let me know. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.